Welcome to the Uplifters Podcast. I'm Aransas Savas, and every week I get to talk to inspiring midlife women to learn how they're doing big, brave things, not just in their own lives, but for their neighbors and broader communities. This week's a little different. I'm going to talk to two women who ran against one another for mayor. Before we get into that, though, let's talk about the state of women in politics. Right now, women make up 28% of Congress, about a third of state legislatures, and only 12 of our 50 governors are women. Research tells us that Americans cite gender discrimination, a lack of party support, and family responsibilities as the major barriers to running for office. Women are twice as likely to rate themselves as not qualified to run for office, even when they have identical credentials. And perhaps most telling, women are far less likely than men to ever be encouraged to run in the first place. But running for office is just one way to shape your community, and maybe not even the most important one. So let's talk about the women you'll meet today. Last November, in the small coastal town of Highlands, New Jersey, with a population of just over 4,000 people, two women stood in our town's firehouse waiting for election results. Their names are Becky Wells. She's a lifelong Highlands resident. She comes from generations of volunteers. She was the first woman to ever serve as the fire chief of the Highlands Fire Department. She served 5 terms on town council and nearly 2 decades on our housing authority, and currently serves as deputy chief and on the board of education for the town. Carolyn Broullon is our current mayor. She found Highlands in 2002, so a quarter of a century ago, while looking for a vacation home, and never left. She and her wife, Donica, poured themselves into this town by streaming town hall meetings after Hurricane Sandy so that displaced residents could still have a voice, leading the effort to bring nonpartisan elections to Highlands, opening a shop on the main street. She has been elected 3 times as the mayor of Highlands and won this current election. In this photo of 2 women in a male-dominated environment waiting for election results, I saw so much bravery. These were women in a male-dominated profession, standing in a male-dominated space, bravely advocating for change. They ran against each other, and only a few dozen votes separated the winner from the loser. So roughly half the town voted for one, and roughly half the town voted for the other. In this moment, when national politics feels overwhelming and unchangeable, this is a conversation about what's possible in our own backyards, and about how midlife women are uniquely positioned to lead these changes. Becky Wells and Carolyn Broullon, welcome to the Uplifters. Thank you for being here.
Happy to.
Becky, I want to start with you. You've spent your entire life in Highlands. Generations of your family have shaped this town. What does Highlands mean to you?
Highlands to me is really everything, right? It's where I chose to stay as I became an adult, as I started to raise my kids. It's where I want to be. It's where I want my kids to be. It's a wonderful town. It's filled with wonderful people. I've always loved that, we've had the mom and pop shops, the great restaurants, not over commercialized, just like your small town feel. Everybody kind of knows everybody. They watch out for your kids. I always laugh, as my kids are now, my stepdaughter's 26, my son is 13, and my daughter's 11. And, I start letting them out a little bit, and Nancy, our local florist, will call and be like, I just saw Parker go down the street. He's okay. He crossed the street. It's really a wonderful way to live.
Oh, beautiful. I've loved living here for the short time that I have. And Carolyn, you've been here for almost a quarter of a century now. not a recent upstart like me, who's only been visiting for about a decade and only living here for about a year. But what does Highlands mean to you as someone who moved here, who chose this place as an adult?
Quite honestly, a lot of what Becky said resonates with me. Being at the shop every day, I love it that the school bus stop lets out right in front of the shop, and the kids come off and they stop and they wave. It is a really warm sense of community, and even when people don't get along, almost doesn't matter, because they still know this is what's best for the town, and we do it.
I love that. It is a remarkable place. I've been so surprised by the experience of it, having lived in a giant city for the last 25 years. It's my first time in small town life, and I'm kind of hooked for all of the reasons that you've both described. And I feel so welcome and have absolutely fallen in love with the place and its people. Let's talk for a second just about from your perspective, what your vision for the future, your hopes for the future are of this town. And Becky, again, let's start with you.
My biggest hope is that we can keep moving forward, yet we're able to keep our small town charm, keep our long-term residents, keep it where the taxes are affordable, and we're not losing droves of people that are moving to Delaware or the Carolinas, because we have so many great families here that we don't want to lose them. We want to make sure that not only do they stay, but their kids can stay, and then their kids can stay. Through campaigning and through my kids being in school, so many wonderful new families have moved into the district and to our community, and they're interested and they love it. And that's also, it's wonderful too, because I feel like we are meshing both the new and the old.
I want to talk more about the campaigning in just a second. I think you make a really good point. We should probably all campaign for office at some point, just as an excuse to meet our neighbors, or at least find some other excuse to get out there and connect with humans one-on-one. Carolyn, what is your vision and hope for the future of this town?
It's really, again, this is where Becky and I have a lot of the same desires and want to keep moving forward in a positive manner, but also keeping and retaining all of our past. I've been working with the clammers at the clam plant a lot, and we really wanted to start celebrating them in a more public fashion. I mean, we just actually had a meeting with prospective buyers for properties on Bay Avenue, because we want to get rid of those empty lots, because those empty lots are what keep our taxes high. So there was a lot of engagement. There's a new program that the state is putting out that makes financing a lot easier. And it also, as a bonus, it has a component that you would need to highlight some green energies. It's called CPACE. We were the fourth municipality in the state to get on board. So it's being able to grab onto these cutting edge programs that'll help not just economically, but then you get your feature, which is a new shop or affordable apartments. We're really doing well with our affordable housing.
I'm so struck again by how much your visions share, that they really are about, yes, progress and moving forward, while also really celebrating and caring for what makes this town special and unique and the rich history here. And I think there's more of that in our country that we don't hear about. What we hear about, because frankly, fewer people are going to listen to this episode if we talk about ways of working together than they would if we said, hey, ladies, let's duke it out, right? Because people like drama. My husband works in television news. He has for 25 years. That is what sells, is conflict. And I feel like it's my mission to sort of manage my own algorithm and the communities that I serve by saying, like, okay, screw the algorithm. How can we talk about unity and collaboration and what unites us and find common ground to move further, faster together? And that's why, again, I was so moved by that photo of the two of you and by your answers to these questions. You have so much in common in terms of the vision for the future. But before we talk about all of that, I do want to talk about you as two, is it okay to say midlife women? I feel like I'm going to call myself middle-aged when I'm 75, but I'm also doing it at 50. I don't know. Two midlife women campaigning like in a tiny town where you're asking for votes from your nearest neighbors, your friends, your community, the people in your backyard that you've never spoken to. And I just imagine that's a pretty heavy task. So, Rebecca, I'm going to start with you again. What was the experience of running for office like for you on a personal level?
Well, I mean, honestly, it wasn't my first rodeo with the campaigning, as Carolyn's aware. We sat on council many years ago together. So this is probably the seventh time I've run for election. It does get a bit harder each time because it's harder and harder to throw yourself out there and set everything up. Especially every time I'd ran in the past, I didn't have two other children that had hockey and dance and CCD, and the fire department needed this and this needed that, and it was kind of like just me, and off I went. But I will say, most people know I lost my father in August, and he was a member of the fire department for 50 years.
A
And so I got
treasured member
yeah,
of
I got
this
a little
town.
bit of a late start, but you know what? He said not to quit, so we didn't quit, and we moved forward. And it ended up taking a time that probably would have been very dark or depressing. And I had a lot of fun. Like we joked around, the people that helped me with my campaign a lot. We said, well, if you need to get something done, go to a group of overcaffeinated, overstimulated moms, because that gets it done, you know? And
Amen.
and we had a great time, you know, every day we were in contact. Where are we walking? What time are we walking? I tend to exercise every morning at 6. So I started doing little walking tours at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then I realized, oh my goodness, I'm always in the gym. I didn't realize how dark it was out here. But some of us came with flashlights and we still walked, and we got to really connect with a lot of other residents, and we got to try to make the best decisions, get the best message out there, and be out there as much as we could. And we really went hard. I would probably starting in the September timeframe till the end.
I love that. One of my hopes from this episode is that people hear you both talk about this and say, wait, maybe I could engage in being part of the change in my community. And frankly, the vast majority of politicians in this country are men. And that is how it has been since the founding fathers. And the only way that will change is if women feel safe stepping into office. And we've heard from women who have been first in these male dominated fields over and over in this show. And one of the things we've heard is how emotionally, physically, relationally taxing it is. The systems aren't built for us. And yet I think hearing women say, I did it my way. Was it the easiest thing I ever did? Maybe not, but I found a way to do it because it was worth it to me. If we were to end this episode right now and leave folks with that message, we'd have done something really important. Carolyn, you've run for election as mayor multiple times. So for you going into this election, knowing that you were running against another person, what did that mean for you in terms of how you thought about how to present yourself to your community?
It's all about talking to people. It's about building coalitions, asking people to come on to committees about something that they're passionate about. I've gotten a couple of newer residents to get onto some committees, which is good because then they get to meet their neighbors and then maybe go on to do something else. Like Becky said, there's a lot of really our biggest booming demographic right now are young marrieds with little ones. You want to see the next generation coming in, and they're all ecstatic to have moved here. They love the vibe of the town. And as I've used that phrase a bit, it's like they've got a little bit of salt in them too. So they fit in perfectly into, we've got that little bit of grit, but we also are very compassionate at the same time. And that empathy.
What were you guys feeling the night of the election?
Here we go again.
Yeah. It's just always nerves, but I mean, however it's going to shake out is how it's going to shake out, right? So, all you can do is say it was a good experience and, maybe run again, maybe see where the chips land and, keep doing good, positive things throughout the community, all the way through. Trying to really, and I think to go back to the campaign, one of the things that was really important to me was that the kids really enjoyed it. Like I went into the elementary school, I talked about the campaign, I brought them with me knocking on door to door, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids that were so excited to say, hey, can you vote for Lucy's mom? Can you vote for Parker's mom? You want that to stick with them. So they say, hey, maybe I'll do this.
I love that you brought your kids with you. My daughter last night said, I just saw a picture from years ago of us at the Women's March. And I really appreciate you always bringing me to political rallies and to marches. She said, because I never knew a world where that's not what we do if we want to create change, that we are people who show up. And so it was really sweet to hear my 17-year-old high school senior reflect that back yesterday and just sort of remind myself that, oh yeah, we didn't get here with these two little activists in the house by accident. We made them a safe and engaged part of the process. And I think that's what's happened to so many women though, right? We don't see enough women running for office. And so we don't feel that sense of belonging. And it feels very not only alienating, but also scary. We hear all the worst case scenarios, Ken, because that's what makes news. And what I'd like for us to hear more and more is, yeah, there are winners and losers, and we all win if more women run for office.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Just, I think this was the first time that we had 3 women and 2 men on council.
Mm-hmm.
And look at our governor. I mean, more and more women are running.
I want to go back to that photo a little bit. Here you are in a firehouse in this male-dominated space, one where Becky had been a groundbreaker, one in which the two of you are waiting for these results together. Now, the results came in, and 51.35% of the vote, 1,104 votes, went to Carolyn. 48.28%, 1,038 votes went to Becky. We are talking just a handful of folks making the difference here. So we've got half of the town who's saying, we want to stick with the mayor we currently have. We've got half the town saying, we think we might want to change and we're voting for this person. What did that say to the two of you about what we need collectively as a town in order to come together and move forward? And Carolyn, this time I'll start with you.
1,000 people didn't vote, which is really just wild to me, because I'll tell you a really quick little story. Back when Jimmy Carter won over Gerald Ford, my sister and I would walk to school, and I was 7 or 8, and we were discussing Kissinger. We've always been uber political, so it just threw me to see that so many people did not vote, and it just blew me away. I think it was, or how many people voted for the governor but didn't vote for the mayor.
That's what surprised me too. I mean, you already went to the box, but you didn't go all the way down.
Exactly.
I think there was like a 250 difference. They just voted for governor and left. Like they didn't touch anybody else. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. When I started breaking down the numbers once the final results were in, I was just like, something's not right here.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And arguably that's where we have the most potential
to
influence change, is at the very hyper local level. One of the most important stories I think we've ever run on this show was an interview with Helen Arteaga, and she started a local health center because people in her community, in her literal actual teeny tiny segment of a borough of Manhattan, the borough of Elmhurst, Queens, weren't getting healthcare that met them on their terms. And after creating a really revolutionary system for meeting an incredibly diverse population where they were, she was amazing dramatic story. So I'll make it the shortest version. She was named to the first Latina CEO of NYC Health and Hospitals Elmhurst, and then has just recently been named the head of health and human services for the city of New York City, Mamdani. And so what I see in that story over and over again is an evolution of a message her father taught her very early on, which is, if you want to make a difference, focus on your own backyard. It's just that as her backyard grew, that the scale of influence grew. But ultimately, it started with her closest neighbors and now has expanded to 8 million people. And I think when we step back and we say, like, well, how do I make a difference in a world that feels so totally, utterly, horrifically broken sometimes? The answer is in our own backyards, which is what the two of you are demonstrating so powerfully. And whether it's at the council level, at the fire department, as the mayor, those are all just ways of making a difference, and arguably none of them more important or more influential than the other. Becky, what does it say to you that people were abstaining and that there was such a divided vote?
I think, in all honesty, one of the true reasons that I ran was people just wanted a choice. People were not happy that people have been running uncontested for years. When I always ran, it was always more of, there was always way more candidates than spots. So it was always a fight. So we've had a lot of uncontested, and people just said, like, I think it's time people need a choice. And I could, you have to agree, people do need a choice. That's what makes America what it is, having a choice. So, that made me happy to give people a choice, and you can't switch the past, you can just keep moving forward. But I think people just really wanted that ability to say, hey, what else is out there?
What I'm taking from that, and correct me if you see this differently, but that part of what you're both observing is disengagement. And from a psychological perspective, and of course, my expertise is in motivation and behavior change, we understand that people tend towards disengagement when they feel powerless to create change. And so when I listen to both of you talk about, okay, people aren't voting, people aren't stepping up to participate in elections, I think in large part it is because we feel like, man, things are so broken. How can little old me be a part of creating change? And what you're both saying is, well, first of all, by voting, by at least using the power of your vote. Second of all, by stepping up and engaging and understanding what the issues are so that you feel more confident if that's what's getting in your way. And third of all, if you see solutions, don't just be a naysayer and see things are broken. Say, here's some ideas on how we might make them better. Even if that's just, here's who we could talk to learn new ways to make them better. You don't necessarily have to have all the answers, which is, I think, kind of what we're told in society is like, well, you shouldn't do anything unless you have all the answers. But I think what midlife women learn through lived experience is that nobody knows all the answers. You just have to be the one asking questions and trying to find solutions and enlist other people to help figure it out. How do we use this as an indication of ways that we might best serve the whole and re-engage more of the town in the future?
I honestly feel that the toxicity of social media is helping to break us and break how we interact with each other, where if you see somebody on the street and you strike up a conversation, that's one thing. As I call them, the keyboard warriors that will only engage online, and they're just, throwing darts at you or, flames or at each other. It's disheartening. But I think that social media is part of the problem.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. As an outsider, it made me not want to move to this town when I first looked at the social media, because I was like, who are all these mean-spirited people? And then, of course, it has no relationship to the people you actually meet in this town. And these are the warmest, most generous, welcoming, kind people. Becky, what's coming up for you?
I would like to start some sort of little group, whether we're meeting monthly, just to talk about, and you're off social media, you're meeting your neighbors. Yeah, I'll probably throw it out there on social media. It's not political. It's not a Democratic club. It's not a Republican club. It's just a Highlands club. Just come and meet your neighbors and, wherever, if they're doing the concerts this summer in Veterans Park, let's try to meet there and sit there together. If we're just a little bit more of awareness of where we are and keeping the momentum going and talking about the issues that people feel strongly about, and encouraging, maybe not everybody has to go to the council meeting, but maybe two of us go and check and see what's happening there, and then bring it back and talk about some of the issues that, whether you like them or not, or whether you think what needs to happen. And I think that would really be a good way. I mean, I know Carolyn and I have discussed this sometimes, because I go either way with the nonpartisan thing, because I felt like we were able to foster more candidates under those, they always had like a group, right? You were interviewing, and there was people coming up the line that then wanted to run next and then wanted to run next. So they're not becoming a true team. And not that you need to be a D or an R to be a team, but I think we just need a group that's going to say, hey, we want to lead next. This guy's interested. What needs to happen? What should he attend? Where should he go? That kind of stuff, I think, because that makes it very instrumental as you're learning your way through the process. Instead of saying at the 11th hour, oh, it's August 21st and my paperwork has to be there at 4, let me throw it in. So you're kind of fostering, mentoring your next generation of town leaders.
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting point about the nonpartisan elections. My instinct is that probably part of the lower voter turnout and the choice not to vote for a mayor was because it required them to have actually done some individual investigation and to not just say, I'm this for this sports team or that sports team, because that's really so much of what like the tribalism underneath our Democrat and Republican labels have become in a really unhelpful way right now. And so people probably were like, I don't know which one's on my team. If I don't know those shortcuts where somebody else has already vetted them for me, I don't feel the confidence to know that I've vetted them and figured it out. And on the other hand, certainly labeling people would have made that decision easier. So interesting point, Becky.
Yeah, there was a lot of pointed questions on the campaign. What side are you on? Where do you land? And I'm like, look, it's not about that. I'll tell you where I land, but it's about Highlands,
Yeah.
Right.
Many were very happy. I went up to one house and they were kind of like, we're not interested. And I was like, okay. And I walked away and they're like, wait a minute, you're that girl running for mayor. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, come in. And then we talked for a while and they were like, so glad that, we thought it was higher office. We thought it was somebody for somebody else's campaign, but now you're here and, happy to have you. So it goes either way, when you get that pointed question, unfortunately, how national politics are going, you don't know which way to answer anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of us don't agree with any party wholeheartedly.
Right.
We probably all see issues with both parties that are significant, but this idea of rallying in support of a town and in a community, that probably appeals to most of us, to care for the people in our own backyard. And so my biggest takeaway from this conversation so far is get in touch with your community, actively engage in shaping the future of it, and look for ways to connect and have FaceTime with the people who are truly your neighbors.
Exactly. And you'd be amazed. They want you to come in. They want to talk to you. They want to talk about everything from baseball to what's going on in the world. And it's like they would pontificate about national or statewide fill in the blank. I'd be like, let's just talk about Highlands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you just don't want to get into those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they are so much more separate from human beings. And there's a longitudinal study of trust that has been run for the last 50 years continuously by Edelman. And we've seen a progressive decline in trust over the last 15 years. And every year we've thought it's tanked and it's gotten as low as trust can possibly go. And yet continuously it gets lower and lower. And what Edelman reports on in one frame or another year after year is that our distrust is only challenged by proximity. So we are more likely to create trust if we have face-to-face time with another human being, and we appreciate that we share values and goals. So as we start to close out, I'd just like to hear your hopes for how we as a community come together to work toward that common goal that you share, and what that might mean for what's possible for our culture at large.
I think you have to show up. You have to be there. If there's no dialogue, then you don't know if you're doing something right or wrong. You just have to never be afraid to talk to people.
I love that. So we have to invite others in and be brave enough to say what's troubling us in order to be a part of that. And just sitting in our own homes complaining is not going to change anything.
Exactly.
Well said.
And I'm similar to Carolyn. Be present. I get it. People look at me and they go, "Oh my goodness, look at your resume. Do you ever sleep? Do you like?" And I might be the exception to the rule. Not everybody wants to be Miss Lady Fire Chief, Miss Board of Ed, Miss this, run for mayor 2 weeks after my dad dies. Not everybody wants to do this. But you know what? If you can give a night a week or 2 nights a month, if you can come out and join the fire department, the first aid, the business partnership, anything. You get to learn your neighbors, have input, and really shape your community, because I think that's the most important part. When I first got on council in 2001, it was a very drastically different community. And I do know that here I am in 2026 going, my 15 years there did help change this community in a positive light. And I feel like everyone should want a little bit of that feel, right? There are people, of course, who just want to pay their taxes and live harmoniously. That's perfectly fine too. But there's a lot of people that really, as I found through walking every day, have that interest, want to help, and they're not sure how to start helping.
What you're saying is you don't have to figure it all out. You just have to get in there and offer some tiny amount of service and connection. And whether that is being a challenger and asking questions of the people who can influence them, or whether it's volunteering, it is engagement. And so I think to every person listening to this who is not happy with something happening in this country, the answer is not to go and type it into a computer screen and complain about it. It's not to lose sleep all night alone. It's to actually get out into your community and talk to the people who have the potential to make a difference. It's to become the people who can make a difference. And you two are such extraordinary role models for that. And that photo, again, the reason it moved me is because I am a woman in the world. I am the mother of 2 young daughters, and we are leaving them a pretty screwed up world. And it's not going to get better on its own. It's going to get better because people who are angry, people who are frustrated, people who are disappointed, people who see a better way, say something and do something. And like the two of you, risk the discomfort of not knowing, the discomfort of being challenged or questioned, and try anyway. So I truly can't thank both of you enough for your courage, for your willingness, and for being such an extraordinary role model for my daughters, for me, and for everyone else in our community. So thank you for taking time to talk about this today with all you both have going on. And thank you for all you've done for Highlands and continue to do to make it such a wonderful place to live.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching the Uplifters podcast. If this inspired you, hit subscribe and tap the bell to stay uplifted. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs a little lift today. Big love.
Painted water sunshine with rosemary and thyme. Dwell in the perplexing, though you find it vexing. Toss a star and hover, be your own best lover. Relish in a new prime, plant a tree in springtime. Dance with idle hindsight, bring the sun to twilight.